Hey guys, Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. We want to thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network. And if you want to see what we're up to outside of the station, please follow us all over social media. I'm on Twitter at MikeMMedia and on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. You can follow the good brother Alex Mercado on Twitter at Mercado21Alex and on Instagram at Mercado2121. The lovely Nicole Mancha is on all social media platforms at Typing When Tipsy. You can follow the network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. Our pop culture show, The Good Brothers, on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod. Our true crime shows on Instagram at Murder, Mysteries, and More. And of course, like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all our videos on YouTube.com/Mike Mercado 2333 or by searching Mercado Airwaves Network. We play video games on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves Network. And of course, you can support our network by finding a tier just for you, whether you want early access, you want to be part of polls, you want to win contest prizes, by visiting us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And we really appreciate it wherever you get your favorite podcast to like, rate, review, and share us. And please spread the word. For the good brother, Alex Mercado, for the lovely Nicole Mancha, I'm Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network. Welcome in, friends, to Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. We hope you are all being safe during these crazy times, whether you're at a stay-in shelter, quarantine, on lockdown, whatever it is. Hopefully you're being safe and sound and enjoying your time with friends, family, or whoever you're secluded with. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, and today I wanted to bring a little surprise. I wanted to bring some more fun. We had such a great time and such a great reaction from you awesome people with our show with Christian Simpson from the Daily Blitz, talking all things NFL, that we had to bring in another one of our best friends, Paul Chivari from the Weekend Baseball Journal, and of course, he's one of our best buddies, always here in the network, so we had to get him on to do a little bit of quarantine talk when it comes to the MLB. Paulie Ice, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I don't think I'm going to be as good as Christian Simpson, though, as far as a guest knowledge and entertaining-wise.
Well, you're selling yourself short, even though you are full of shit, and I have many reasons why you are. Christian Simpson was a great guest.
Give you a list. I'm going to give you a list of reasons, yeah.
So, Paulie, dangerously, how you been doing during this time? Are you guys still doing work over at the podcast?
Yeah. I'm still putting out a podcast every week. I was doing, ramping up to the season, I was doing division previews in the middle of the week because it was just so much content with the news going around. You know, I try to do like the weekly snapshot during the weekend, and then there was so much content. I was doing division previews during the week, but then everything happened with coronavirus and shutting down the season and everything else that it came to be like, well, there's not a lot of news. Now I got to do the preview on the weekend. And I think I pushed off the National League West. I was pushing off for about a week or so there. And finally I got around to it this weekend, but it's just been so hard to preview or to talk about stuff because you don't want it to be totally about the virus, but you're giving the updates as to how it's affecting baseball and all that. But then after that, it's like, okay, well, you know, what's going on? A couple guys are injured, a couple guys are rehabbing. You know, what else can you talk about? So yeah, I'm still going to continue to push out some sort of content every week. But after I do the division previews, I got to rethink what the next thing is because we're in a holding pattern right now. There's really nothing new being said. There's nothing we can say about how the season's going to go because we don't know if and when and how there's going to be a season. So it's been an interesting time. I don't know, but you got to stay busy, you know, and keep your wits about you.
And if you guys want to keep up to date with most of the breaking news and some personal opinions and also some really fun podcasts, you can follow Paul personally on Twitter at Paul Chivari. And of course, you can follow the Weekend Journal at Baseball Weekend on Twitter. Now, when it comes to creating the content that you've noticed and you are doing the divisional things, is it kind of hard for you to really think about how far away we actually might be from opening day?
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that I've been saying in my podcast too, is that, you know, like, this is how I feel right now, but they aren't playing games, so I don't have the visual look at it. You know, I'm not seeing how the matchups are working. I'm not seeing what they're working on, and we don't know when the games are going to be. So it's just, you know, once we know, I heard something along the lines of there would be like a 4-week ramp-up period before a season would even start, you know, because they still have to have some sort of training of some sort. So once this the 4-week ramp-up period would happen, I'm going to have to do another round of division previews, I think, because we'll get a better sense of what these teams are looking like and what type of season they're going to have. It's going to be an altered schedule from what they, the typical major league schedule. So I think that will really make an impact on how we're going to cover it this year.
Who do you see this impacting the most position wise? Is it the pitchers? Is it the position players? It may be a novice question, but when we're dealing with something like this that's unprecedented, where do you think is going to be the biggest struggle for guys to get ramped up because their bodies were getting ready to be in the middle of a 162 game season and then they were put on ice? Who do you think is going to have the toughest time with, let's say, like a 4-week spring training when and if they come back?
I would think maybe pitchers more so than hitters, because I think hitters can always get some sort of timing, whereas pitchers, I think, need, they need a guy to throw to. They need to warm their arm up. They need a certain sort of repetition. I think at the same time, it's going to help pitchers too, because look at a guy like James Paxton wasn't going to be ready until the middle of the season. So now he's probably going to have a whole season, whatever that would look like. So that helps the Yankees. That helps him. I think it also helps guys like Chris Sale, where like if he would have jumped on it maybe about a month earlier, that would have helped his rehab time. I mean, Chris Sale's not missing any innings right now. I mean, he's going to miss a lot of time with the Tommy John surgery that was just announced, but it's time for guys to get the surgery that they need if they can get the surgery, and it's time for guys to recover. But I think it's also going to affect hitter timing, reaction times, that sort of thing. But I think all these guys will fall back into it once they get a few games in.
Do you think the veteran teams are going to handle this better than, let's say, some upshot teams? Like, will the Chicago Cubs or St. Louis Cardinals or even the Milwaukee Brewers handle this better than, let's say, the Cincinnati Reds, which is a lot of people's, surprise hot pick? Do you see that type of correlation because there's been such a delay and there's such a weird cloud over the season?
You could argue that. I think chemistry is going to play a big role in this upcoming season. Camaraderie, guys that are familiar with each other, guys that know each other's quirks, whereas a team that's kind of maybe just freshly put together and didn't get that spring training really. I mean, they only were with each other for a few weeks and all, training, playing games, maybe some split squad. You don't really get a chance to gel with each other. So I think there's something could be said about that, where a team that's full of veterans / a team that maybe has veterans that have been together a while or know how to work well with each other will have an advantage over a younger team and an experienced team, a team with maybe too many egos clashing. But ultimately it's got to be, we're more than likely going to have an abbreviated season this year. That's my assumption. And that means guys are going to have to get up and go quicker. And I think it's going to be those types of teams, the teams that can really rally each other and help each other, be patient with each other, at the same time, still kind of, working quickly to try and get wins right away and not let the season slip away quickly from them.
Do you think this impacts the Dodgers-Yankees World Series that a lot of people were expecting or anticipating, or do you think that this really has put the season up in the air and the favorites might still be the favorites, but not as strongly as maybe we thought heading in maybe January or February?
I think, if anything, it helps the odds of a Dodgers-Yankees World Series. I mean, you've got so many injuries on the Yankees. They still would have been a favorite to win the American League East in a 162 game schedule. And at opening day, it was like, Giancarlo Stanton was a maybe for opening day. Aaron Judge, I think, had the stress fracture in his rib. So he was questionable for opening day, possibly totally missing that. I think Aaron Hicks might still be out. So, I mean, that's a decimated outfield right there. I mentioned James Paxton. Tanaka, I think, has always had some UCL problems. So, I mean, I think the time off is helping him right now. They lost Severino for the season. Herman is still going to have to serve a suspension, so they might miss him for the whole season. I think in some ways it helps them, though, from the guys that are recovering from injury will be 100% or close to, so that sense of urgency will be there, and they'll have the fresh guys that they need, the horses they need. The Dodgers were already deep. I think with the Dodgers, you look at a guy like Clayton Kershaw, and it's like, well, he's bound to be injured at some point in the season. So in a shorter season, maybe that decreases the chances of him spending time on the injured list.
You know, Paul, we're here talking, and we have the benefit, and we're here to be a distraction and to be a support and something of like bring back normalcy for our fans listening right now. And we're talking as if there's going to be a baseball season, but in your heart of hearts, us being in the media and knowing kind of getting inside information as it comes kind of trickle down before it hits the mainstream, do you think we're going to have a baseball season?
I I don't know because I don't know. It could be September and they could be allowed to play games again, but then, how would you do that? Like, I mean, would you have like a super duper tournament? Like you can't do a 30 game schedule and then, do a season. How is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think if the league is willing to alter the season and be open to any possibility, I mean, what about like a double elimination tournament? And maybe you put, you give like four teams a bye or whatever. However you'd work it out, I'd have to really sit down
Mm-hmm.
pen and paper and figure this out. But you know what I'm saying? Like maybe you give, a bye to the final four teams last year, and then the remaining 26 or however that would work, 24, grab like two other teams. I don't know. Maybe all the division winners. And then the remaining 24 battle it out, and then you work that way. And I don't know. I mean, or like a double elimination tournament, kind of like college baseball, how it used to be with the World Series. Maybe something like that. I guess it still is double elimination in college World Series, isn't it?
I think
I'm trying to
so.
think if the
Yeah.
format's changed. Yeah, it's changed over the years, and I should know this, but.
Uh,
But yeah, I think maybe a double elimination tournament could be something. I mean, that's just if the union and the league wants to do that. If not, they might just cancel it altogether if it's not worth it enough to do, a format of round robin games and then going into a 1 month playoff. But I think I'm optimistic that there could be a season. I just think it'll be, July, August, September by the time we start seeing some movement. They could always do their 4 week training in isolation. They don't need to bring crowds to it. If everyone's healthy, they could go to their spring training sites and do their training in their games and then start the season somehow. If they got to play to empty stadiums, so be it. Some of the problems that they were having in Europe with there were soccer games that were played closed stadiums,
mm.
but they were having a problem with supporters showing up outside the stadium. And I don't think you're going to find that too much with baseball. It just, I don't think it's the same sort of fan base in baseball that would show up. The only ones I'd be worried about are maybe like the Cubs, the Red Sox, where there's kind of that party atmosphere outdoors outside the stadium. But I mean, like, Philadelphia, it's like a parking lot and other sports complexes. Kansas City's the same thing. Maybe Baltimore has kind of that downtown sort of portion to it, where people can drop in and look and see a live game. So I think they could do it, but that all just depends on where we're at by then. And I think it's hard for us to forecast now because we're still in the early goings of this. And I was looking at the numbers and we're at the really scariest week, I think, so far, just because they were warning us about the numbers, jumping really quickly. And we're seeing that right now. So the hope is that in a month or two, it's going to level off at some point and then start going back. China's not reporting new cases these days. So there's hope, and they only had it for about 3 months. So I mean, this is just me speculating and being optimistic, but I think by June or July we could see sort of movement, where maybe they're training again and we have an idea of what a season is looking like. But I know it's really, really bold of me to kind of say that in the sense that, here I am optimistic that this summer we're going to see Major League Baseball on the same day that Tokyo is basically, sources are saying the IOC is going to cancel the Olympics this year and push it back to 2021. So it's really hard to say. I have a feeling they'll play baseball this year, but they have to be open-minded about it. That's what I have to say about it. If they're going to be closed-minded and say that there still needs to be, a healthy mix of divisional games and, interleague games and this and that and the rivalries, they're not going to be able to fit in everything that they want and balance it in the right way. And I could see the league and the union saying, you know what, this season's a wash. But everyone's going to continue forward. The biggest thing right now of the season, though, is service time. Does that count this year? How does that count? And how does compensation for certain players count? So it was good to see minor leagues are taking care of anybody on a minor league contract right now is taken care of through April 8th, and then after that they're going to figure out what they're going to do. But if you're a minor leaguer on a 40-man roster, then it's up to the major league team, and of course they're compensating players, they're compensating the stadium workers. So action is being taken to pay these guys going forward and take care of them. But now the biggest question is, does this season spend an option even though they didn't play? Does this season count towards their service time? So would that make guys a free agent that didn't get to play this season? You think of a guy like Mookie Betts. The Dodgers just traded for him. What happens if he's a free agent in the offseason? The Dodgers didn't get a single at bat out of him while they had him on their roster.
That is so unreal. These are unprecedented times when you even bring that up. Like, obviously, we're just worried about getting games in, and obviously people's health in the big picture. But I mean, that's something that I don't think many people have even thought of.
Yeah, because business goes on for. Well, I don't want to say for everyone because there's people that are just out of work as a result of it. But even if you're out of work, business goes on. You still have to pay the bills. You still have to do whatever. So I think everyone is feeling some sort of effect of this where you just don't know how you're going to be able to continue with life as normal right now. And for baseball players, that's the business sense of it of like, a player, I don't want to be on my minor league deal or my rookie deal anymore. I want to be a free agent. And the ownership and the management is, well, wait a minute, you didn't play this year. How does that count? So that's where it's at. I was hearing a rumor that by Tuesday there would be an agreement, but this was yesterday, and I haven't seen anything since that said Major League Baseball and the MLB Players Association are coming to any agreements on what to do about this sort of stuff. But I think they have time to worry about it, though. I think the goal is that I think they're going to kind of like adjust service time dates. So if it's like if we played half a season, that would count as a full season. But if we have no season, I think that would be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Best friend of the show, Paul Chivari, joins us today on Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves with Mike Mercado. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike M Media and on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. You can follow Paul Chivari on Twitter at Paul Chivari and Baseball Weekend Journal on Twitter at Baseball Weekend. Paulie, what's the SoundCloud?
Just search for Baseball Weekend Journal. I think it's like Chiv Sports or something like that, CHIV Sports. SoundCloud is kind of hard because I'm not going to pay for the pro account. So it's like the most recent episodes are on there. But, if you're on Google, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, you can find them all on there.
Beautiful, and it's always good. It's a reminder of what might be just down a few weeks that we can have baseball back. You know what? And this is what I wanted to bring up to you, Paulie Dangerous. Is do you think baseball would take advantage of what has been a horrible situation and maybe try to find a way to reconnect with their fans? Maybe try to do something with social media. Maybe this is the time for baseball, if they're smart, to do what other sports are doing and growing and being part of the new change. Baseball has always been really behind. I understand that it's advanced media, it's where it makes a lot of its money, but this is its time for the sport to reconnect with the community. And I wonder if, for you being an insider, do you feel like baseball is going to take this opportunity to do something with it?
I think in some ways they have. They've been seeing some of the top games that are on YouTube right now that you can watch. I think MLB Network has been showing a lot of classic games. So I think that's one, baseball's always played on nostalgia. So, this is a time where you can go back and watch those memorable games. I know, White Sox fans, they're going back to their World Series DVDs. Cubs fans are doing the same with their World Series DVDs. Me right now, the whole time I've been talking to you, I'm just playing random games just to get back into the groove of, what do these guys look like? What do they feature? So I'm watching I think it was May 6th, Braves at the Dodgers, Walker Buehler pitches a gem in like a 5-3 victory or something like that. So I've had that on in the background since we've been talking. I'll just do that from time to time. I'll just throw on like a random game, just to watch and just see. This is what it looks like. This is how it is, and it's neat to see sometimes too, where it's like, oh, this guy's not on this team anymore, or can't wait to see what this guy looks in a different uniform because he's on a different team. So I don't know. It's been fun going back, and I think that's really the only way baseball can do this is if they play on the nostalgia and just, what are the classic games? What are the things you like? Who are the great players? The all-timers. Just kind of a time to look back on what we've had in the game and, just be ready for it going forward.
When do you think we need to have our first pitch actually happen for us to have a semblance of a normal season? Truncated, granted. And with that being said, let's say it is truncated. Is this the backdoor that baseball has been looking for to maybe add another playoff team to give more playoff games and take less games off of the regular season?
Oh, absolutely, on adding that playoff team for sure. And don't be surprised if neutral field World Series happens.
Oh, wow.
Because let's keep that in mind too. Let's say our playoffs start in November and we're having the World Series around Thanksgiving in Miami. But the Marlins aren't there. They're not making the World Series this year.
Sure.
Although the last time I said a National League East team wasn't going to make the World Series, I ate my hat. So, but you know what I'm saying, though. It could be something along those lines. I wouldn't rule that out, maybe just for this year only. But I could definitely see adding the playoff game because they've been talking about that. And of course, if you remember, they're saying what the reality show based playoff format. Do you remember this?
No, remind me.
So they're toying with the idea. I don't remember if they wanted to do it. Well, obviously not this year, but I think in the near future they're playing around with the idea of, let's say you are the best team so just taking 2019, we'll say the Astros had the best record in the American League. They get a bye. The Yankees were the next best team. They get to choose their opponent based on the wild card winners. So the Twins are exempt because they're a division winner, and then you pick the next best three teams, and that was Rays, A's, Red Sox.
That's right.
So
yes.
Logically, you'd think, okay, well, the Yankees would pick the team with the worst record. Well, wait a minute, though. That's their rival.
Right.
In the previous season, they got bounced out, or in 2018, they got bounced out by the Red Sox. Maybe they want to go with maybe the A's were playing a little flat at that moment. Maybe they want to do something like that. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting of a format. I didn't necessarily like it, but I could see in a shortened season, this would be the time to experiment. And I think as a fan, who are we as fans to complain about how they choose to resolve this? We should just be thankful that there's baseball this year. So if there is, so I think if they want to experiment with things, this would be the time. Adding a playoff team in a shortened season, I think would get everyone really excited about it. I think you're going to see there won't be things that are as routine. I think it'll feel more like a playoff atmosphere in a shortened season. But in order to have a normal season where you would have some of those games where you see guys kind of dial it back a little bit, I don't want to say lollygag, but, kind of your routine, lazy summer day sort of games that you sometimes see out of some of these guys. I think it'd be June 1st would be the latest that you'd have to start in order to have a season like that. You just shave about 2 full months off of the season. So you would still have a shortened season, but it would still feel a little bit like that marathon that we're used to and not put so much pressure on it. But I think realistically, we're looking at August for a start, which means it's going to be a heavily abbreviated season. That's less than half of a season. So, it's going to feel a little rushed, I think. Maybe, by August, I mean, August maybe leaking into October with that, playoffs start in October but end in a neutral site in November, something along those lines.
I think we're a lot of baseball purists and a lot of new fans and a lot of just casuals are in for one heck of a season, just simply of things that we've never seen before. And like I think baseball will try to be as creative as possible, and I think they're going to take this opportunity. They have to. I mean, a lot of these sports are going to have a tough time getting everybody back to the stadiums. To watch is one thing, but to get them back to the stadiums is going to be something that it's going to be really interesting to see what these teams do. Now, who do you think has benefited the most from almost being away from the news? Because I would say that the Cubs are one of these teams that have benefited from dropping the ball of the marquee network, obviously not having a good offseason. They're a team that has hit away.
Yeah. I mean, but before you even ask the question, the elephant in the room team this year that's loving this is the Houston Astros.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about it. I was thinking local, but yeah, I mean, the Houston Astros were literally on their way to get plunked every game, be the story every single series. And do you think when we come back that's a great point of view? Do you think that we're going to be talking about the Houston Astros if, let's say, June 1st we have our first game?
I think so. I think it'll creep back into the storylines, but that really all depends on what's going on around the world and what the temperature of the times are. I think, I was saying this to my wife, and I should probably just write up the journal, is coronavirus is almost the best thing to happen to Major League Baseball right now. You've got the commissioner calling the trophy a piece of metal.
Yep.
You've got the Houston Astros. The Red Sox are under investigation. Yeah, I mean, this could not have come at a better time for Major League Baseball. I mean, it's awful what's happened, but if Major League Baseball needed a distraction, they got one, and it'll come back. It'll trickle back in when it's back on people's minds again. And the Houston Astros are going to be berated all season by the fans if they see fans this year.
Right.
So I mean, it's not going away, but at the same time, it kind of puts things back into perspective and dials it back. And I was saying too that what the Astros did, I don't think is as egregious as the steroid era. So I think while we're beating up on them a little bit and saying that they're cheating, I don't know if it had impacted the games enough to have it be them as the clear cut, well, if they didn't cheat, they would have never won. They have an incredible amount of talent on that team. Obviously Major League Baseball needs to police this. It falls on them, and, shame on the Astros and shame on the league. But people, I think, were jumping a little too far with talking about stripping championships and just really, the trash cans every time they're coming up to bat, that the fans, beating on trash cans and holding signs and booing them and all that. I think it's a little extreme, but at the same time, this is a problem that Major League Baseball created on itself. It wasn't like this was going totally unnoticed, and here we are. And they got their distraction, and we'll see if people are really beating up on the Astros for that as hard as they were, a couple weeks ago, versus when we resume play.
It's interesting, and you and I always find something to debate about, and maybe we'll make this an entire episode if these quarantines and lockdowns keep happening. But the biggest difference, I think, between what the Astros did in the steroid era is, steroids, yeah, they did give you the benefit. They are performance enhancing, but it's a lot tougher to hit the ball when you don't know it's coming, when you do know. And I think no matter how many steroids you take, no matter how many times Barry Bonds put a needle in his butt, it wouldn't change the fact that he didn't know where the ball was coming from. He still had to guess right. He still had to have the proper technique, and he still had to have pinpoint accuracy, opposed to, let's say, Jose Altuve, who might have had a buzzer on his chest. I think that's a little bit different. I think it's a fair argument to say egregiousness and it's all personal preference, but I think there's an argument to be made from both sides of this. I don't think it's necessarily being overblown. I think it's what I'm trying to go with.
I guess my thing is, I don't think the numbers ballooned as much as they did with the steroids. That's kind of my point on it. I think, obviously it's cheating. They have an edge that they shouldn't have. But I think the steroid era was more selfish, where this is kind of a team being a little bit more creative. I don't know. It's obviously wrong. I'm not arguing that what the Astros did shouldn't be, looked upon, the way it's looked upon. It's just more of, I think people are really, really jumping on them a lot more than they did with the steroid era. I don't know. It just feels it just kind of feels like that, and that's maybe because it was just fresh in our minds, and we heard it in the off season, so of course spring training is the first chance that people are going to get to berate them, and we only saw like a week or two of actual spring training games, so perhaps it's just because it's fresh in my mind, but at the same time, I don't think it's anywhere near the steroid era. I just think when you got guys like Brady Anderson hitting 50 home runs, and guys like Barry Bonds are nearly a 500 batting average, because all he has to do is just sit on a fastball, and he's crushing that thing. Whereas Altuve has to hope that whoever's hitting that buzzer is right. He's got a 50-50 shot, and more than likely they're onto the signs. But Altuve still has to time it right too. So I don't know. I mean, it's neither is right. Hopefully baseball can police this, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting. But you were mentioning the Cubs though, and how they needed a distraction, and I think this gives them a perfect opportunity to negotiate that contract, with Marquee Network and Xfinity to figure that one out. So. I mean, it's there's other teams that are having local broadcasting troubles as well. I want to say the Nationals with MASN had something going on, and they need to work out their contract. Kansas City maybe had a problem with like their Fox Sports out there, so this is a good opportunity to rework all those deals, and see what goes on from there. But yeah, I mean, it's I think the Cubs are going to be a really good team going into the season. The moves they made, people were kind of complaining that they didn't do any major moves, but they didn't really need to. And I think the small made are those like kind of Theo Epstein Cub type moves where it could really work out for them. So I wouldn't beat up on the Cubs too much aside from the Marquee Network stuff. They should be sitting pretty once we're back in action.
I think both Chicago teams end up making the playoffs. I think both teams are going to benefit from a shortened season. I think the Cubs benefited because it's a mission for them. They're a veteran team. They're going to have a target ahead. I think for the White Sox, it's less time for hype. It's less time of them feeling themselves. They're going to come in and have to have their feet hitting the ground running. So we'll see if they sink or swim. That's going to be their test. But I think both Chicago teams make the playoffs. One wins the division. One wins a wild card. I think the Twins are a really strong team. So I think the White Sox are a wild card team this year. I think the Cubs win the division. Both teams play in October if we have October baseball, playoff baseball. But, I think you bring up a good point is there's also a lot of storylines beyond just the field that are going to come back up once life kind of goes back to whatever normalcy is moving forward in our life. But, Paulie, I can have you on all day. We've already done a really nice show. So I think we should kind of send you off with a couple of fun ones. And how about we do this one? Since we're all in quarantine, what is a awesome or fun baseball movie to watch when you're at home?
Well, what's funny is I never saw Bull Durham until, probably like 7 years ago or something like that. I just remember I was like really sick, and this is what, before my wife and I got married, she came over to take care of me. And we rented it and watched it and thought it was just the funniest movie. So now I'm a huge Bull Durham fan ever since then, as far as my favorite baseball movie. So that I'm never sick of throwing that one on. But, Major League, yeah. I mean, I saw Major League 2 was on Netflix, and I hadn't seen that one since I was a kid. And I know it's not the same as the original, but it was fun sitting through all that again.
Major League 2 has some great quotes.
I'm more into the funny baseball movies, I guess, than the sentimental or the heroic. I like The Natural, but I was never a huge fan of The Natural. I love Field of Dreams, but at the same time, it's like I've seen it so many times that I can't just pop it on all the time. One that I was thinking about recently that's like just really kind of sad is Bang the Drum Slowly, Robert De Niro.
Yeah,
that's a good one. That's worth watching once if you really want a good movie. I mean, all the baseball movies are worth at least one viewing, but my go-to is either Major League or Bull Durham, especially Bull Durham.
baseball is, and everybody who wants to listen to some good pop culture, film, movie, all of that fun stuff, listen to the podcast, The Good Brothers, of me and good brother Alex Mercado. And we've mentioned this before when we've done sports movies, because easily baseball and boxing are two of the best when it comes to making a movie. It has the most oomph to them, more than, let's say, basketball, more than, let's say, football.
But you know
Yeah.
what the formula is, though? If you can't get the sport right with the movie, then you have to have it be about a kids team or a little league team.
Yes, yeah,
So
Bad
think
News
about like
Bears, yeah.
Little Giants, Bad News Bears,
Mighty Ducks.
um, Mighty Ducks. Yeah, yeah.
Hockey makes for really good sports movies as well. But if you're looking for some really fun baseball movies, obviously Angels in the Outfield, Rookie of the Year. These are fun movies opposed to like Major League, which is, adult comedy. Still one of the greatest comedies of all time, but adult comedy. But if you're looking for something for the entire family, I think you put on Rookie of the Year, Angels in the Outfield. You get a little bit of both. You get American League and National League. It's kind of fun to see some stars in both of those movies. I think baseball does it great. And speaking of Field of Dreams, there's a great one to leave off on. Do we get the Field of Dreams game between the Yankees and the White Sox this year?
Well, it hasn't been canceled yet, and neither has the Cubs Cardinals London game.
That's
They did
right.
cancel April. There was going to be a series in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that was Diamondbacks Padres, and then there was going to be a series in Puerto Rico with the Mets and the Marlins, and that got canceled. Those were both in April. But so far right now, Cubs Cardinals has not been canceled yet. And you're right, there is that Yankees White Sox game in the Field of Dreams out in Iowa that has not been canceled yet. I'm sure they're going to do whatever it takes to play it. So even if they have a shortened season, I could see the league saying, "All right, well we gotta shoehorn that game in there, try and figure out a way to have New York out in Chicago the third week of August, or Chicago and St. Louis in London in, what was that, July or June, whenever that was happening." So yeah, so I mean, I think right now it's on. I think if they're playing in August, they'll do it. But at the same time, I wouldn't bet on it. I mean, I would think the odds are slim at this point of it happening.
Paulie Dangerous, any final thoughts before we let you free back to your family?
Uh, yeah, I think everyone's just kind of, in this unknown right now, and the important thing is to stay positive. I think it's important. It's so easy to politicize this
Mm.
and point fingers and be mad, in all sorts of formats, whichever, however you want to shift your blame or your anger towards anything or anyone. But this is a time to just take care of each other and look after one another. Learn a new skill, read a book, find a hobby, volunteer for something if you can. Sometimes all you need to be is a phone call away from someone. Check in with people, that sort of thing. So I just want to remind people, stay positive. It's like, you and I were talking about movies. It's like it's been a great time to kind of sit down and watch things, and get outside and walk around, get some fresh air, hike. It's a time to really enjoy this. The world hit the pause button for us, so stay safe and enjoy this time rather than be mad at people and be negative.
And I think you're speaking to what a lot of people have been going through. I mentioned it in one of my past live streams. Is I think a lot of people are having a hard time being happy and finding it okay to laugh and finding it okay to still find some enjoyment. You can do all that. Paul and me, we've been best buddies for years now, and we understand the severity of it. We work in a political station. We know what the gravitas of this is, but at the same time, we also have to understand that not everything can be serious 24/7, and people do need some levity. So, I always appreciate it when you join the show, and more than anything, I appreciate it when you're able to join the show in moments like this, and we're able to give somebody an escape for 45 minutes, and we're able to talk about America's pastime. Paul Chivari, Paulie Dangerous, one of the best in the business, one of the best friends that we have here. Follow him on Twitter at Paul Chivari. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Baseball Weekend, and give him a like on Facebook at Baseball Weekend. Paulie Dangerous, love you. Love to the family. Make sure you guys all are safe, and we'll see you on the other side when we're in the station together.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike.
Hey guys, Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. We want to thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network. And if you want to see what we're up to outside of the station, please follow us all over social media. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media and on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. You can follow the good brother Alex Mercado on Twitter at Mercado21Alex and on Instagram at Mercado2121. The lovely Nicole Mancha's on all social media platforms at Typing When Tipsy. You can follow the network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves, our pop culture show, The Good Brothers, on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod, our true crime shows on Instagram at Murder, Mysteries, and More, and of course, like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all our videos on YouTube.com/Mike Mercado 2333 or by searching Mercado Airwaves Network. We play video games on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves Network, and of course, you could support our network by finding a tier just for you, whether you want early access, you want to be part of polls, you want to win contest prizes, by visiting us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And we really appreciate it wherever you get your favorite podcast to like, rate, review, and share us. And please spread the word. For the good brother, Alex Mercado, for the lovely Nicole Mancha, I'm Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network.